Okay, so Reactor has managed to give us what we wanted it to give us, which is animation in which our text, of course, are falling to the sides. Now is the time when we are going to be more creative by implementing particle systems to drive our animation. So here's how it goes. We are going to go to the Create panel. By the way, we are going to create several different kinds of particle systems because each one would need to do something different. The first particle system is the one which is going to be responsible for writing like a scribble, you know, of our text, like as if it was writing with chalk or almost something like that. So we're going to go to the Create panel, select particle systems, and let's draw it like that for now in the viewport. And of course, when you scrub through the timeline, it does nothing except dropping down particles. We now need to align it to this block here, so that of course it outputs the right, so that it emits particles in the right direction. So we put it up, and then we're going to select the Align tool, and then open up the selection tool, and then we're going to pick the text block T. We're going to align it on the X, Y, and Z position, and of course X, Y, Z. Okay, and then hit OK. Now where's our particle system? Oh, there it is, just inverted. As you can see, it's going the other way. Let's try and move it on the local axis, move it forward. Yeah, you can see of course where it's hiding. And then we are going to go to the Modify panel, open up its particle view. We're going to select it and right click, and then right click on the label. We're going to rename it to, we're going to rename the particle system here to Writing T, of course, because it's the one responsible for writing our particles. And first things first, as you can see, the particles are going the other way inside. So we're going to come here to the speed, and then we're going to check reverse. Did you see that? As you can see, we came here, we checked reverse. Now, of course, the particles are flowing the other way by simply checking reverse. Okay. Let me see. Up next, we are going to decide when and for how long should the particles be written. When we scrub forward through animation, we can see we might want it to start from 0 until somewhere here, which is what, until frame 49, or even perhaps frame, let's see, frame 60. Okay, so we're going to change here. We go to the birth, we're going to tell it to start from 0 until 60, like that. Okay, and then how many particles do we want? Well, how about 2,000 particles? Okay, because we need lots of them to create a nice outline of our text. And then 3DMax is wondering, what object should be responsible for creating these particles? Well, this is the part where we drag a position object operator, like that. And then we're going to pick, we need to pick the laser beam T. Of course, you can see what it's doing there. Okay, you can see, of course, the location is set to surface. So when we scrub through this, you can see what is happening. Now, we don't want the particles to be emitted. Instead, they should be stuck to the surface. So to do that, we are going to select the speed operator and simply right click and then delete it. By doing that, what is happening? Right click, delete. Select the speed, right click, delete. No, what is going on? It doesn't want to delete the speed operator. We're going to go to edit, undo select. No. Let's see. Let's undo delete. Okay. Instead, we are going to, because it doesn't want to be deleted, I don't know, for some reason, we can actually select the speed. No. select the speed, actually select the display operator, and then we're going to drag it upon the speed operator. Yeah, that way, of course, the speed is gone. I don't know why it was refusing to be deleted or to be turned off. So now, yeah, you can see now, the particles simply remain where they are. And I think there's one more thing we need to do, because it seems like our particles are not being animated actually. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to select the writing T particle system, and then we are going to change its settings as follows. We come here to the logo size and reduce it, and the length as well as the width. That way it becomes a tiny particle system in the scene. Okay, and then we are going to link it. So select the linking tool. We are going to link it to the to the laser beam T. Link it. And in fact, let's first align it to the laser beam T. Okay, that way, of course, as you can see, it's sitting there now because it has been aligned. Of course, you can see now what is going on. Let's open again our particle view. We are going to give them a shape like that, make them cubes, and also we're going to change the display to geometry, so that of course we can see exactly what they are. You can see they're way too big, so we come to the shape here, and let's reduce the size maybe to something like 0.3, yeah, so that they're nice and tiny now. And let's see, maybe we want to change the position by dragging a position icon there like that, and set it to volume, as you can see. So you see, that was the ideal, to change the position to the volume. And of course you can see now the objects are now sticking to the surface. You see that? That way, when we scrub through the animation, of course, you can see the nice effect that we're having. It appears as if something is being written on the wall. And that something happens to be the outline of the text before it's actually destroyed. You see that when we preview? You can see, of course, what we're having. So now, when we scrub through our animation, it's looking good, but it's not by any means what we'll call neat. What we really want is a nice outline indicating the text. So we're going to select our writing T particle system, open the particle view, and then come down to the position here, where instead of making it to be volume, we are going to change it, the location, to pivot. Can you see now what is happening? Now the particles are nicely following the path of the particle system. You see that? Including where it's supposed to bend. If you preview this, can you see how nice and neat this is looking indeed? Amazing results. Can you believe it, ladies and gentlemen? Look at that, eh? So now, when we animate our scene, you're going to see a nice outline of our text. Let's just open up the particle view again. We need to change its color to a black texture. Yeah, so that it best displays what we have in the scene. Yeah, a real complete black. Yeah, now you see now, of course, how nicely it outlines the text for us. Okay. So you can see, of course, what is happening there. Beautiful result indeed. Now, remember, all along I've been preaching the idea of effective project workflow, so that we can create one thing and then reuse it in other parts of our project. So here's what we are going to do. We are going to open up the particle view window. We are going to select the writing T particle system, right click, come here. It doesn't want to be duplicated here. So instead we are going to select the writing T particle system, and then let's try and see if it can be duplicated still. open up the particle view, writing T. We're going to select it, and then we go to edit clone. Now this particle system, we're going to call it writing J, so that it can be the one, of course, responsible for creating the particle system for letter J. Now here we're going to come here. Now it created the bond between these two particle systems, so we're going to select that bond and delete the connection by selecting delete wire. Let me redo that again. We select that link there, which links this particular system to that one. Right click and then delete wire. Okay. And then we're going to select this event here, and then we go to edit, copy. See that? And then click anywhere empty in the viewport, and then we go to edit, paste. Aha. That way, of course, now we are now going to link this connection here to this one here. Yeah, that way, of course, they can now be connected, so that now we can manipulate things for Mr. J. This is, of course, going to be responsible for writing the particle system for the letter J. So what we need to do is the following. We're going to come here. Actually, we're going to select the writing J. And then we are going to, let's go to the beginning of the timeline. We are going to align it to, of course, the J laser beam. Align it on the X, Y, and Z position, of course. Align the orientation, as you can see. Now you'll notice, of course, it has been positioned nicely there. And then we are going to link writing J particle system to, of course, the laser beam J, like that, and then select link. That way, of course, wherever that one goes, the other follows. And then with our particle view again, yeah, you can see, of course, we don't actually need to change anything. These settings can still be kept. And when we play the animation, can you see that? We have a nice writing of the letter J there. This is really the power of animation. Look at that. Beautiful indeed. And then, just in case, we might want to go to the shape. Maybe you might want the text to stand out a bit more. Let's try to increase maybe the size to 0.5. For the shape, 0.5. Okay, just so that it can be more easily readable by our viewers. Yeah, like that. Okay. And of course, I believe you know what we're about to do as well. We are now going to select writing J, and then instead, actually, let's open up particle view here. Select that, and then we go to edit, copy, select anywhere in the viewport, click anywhere empty in the viewport, and then go to edit, paste. Of course, this guy must be renamed to something else, but first we need to copy this event here. Edit, copy, edit, paste, and of course, this one must be linked to that one, like that. Okay. And then we are going to select writing J01. Let's name it, of course, writing H, because it's going to be responsible for writing the letters on H. Then we are going to align them. We are going to select the align tool, and then we are going to align it to the letter, to the laser beam H. X, Y, and Z position. Okay. Yeah, so there it is now. So that, of course, when we play this back, let's just see. Okay. Let's see. Let's align it again. Basically, we must come to the beginning of the animation like that. Align it to the laser beam H. And, of course, we're going to link it to the laser beam H, like that. Of course, that way, now we have the writing of the letter H. See that? Isn't that beautiful? Look at that, eh? Oh yeah. And now we are going to move from one particle system to the next. Remember, first we created the particle system that's going to be responsible for giving us the text outline. it is now time to create a particle system that will give us some edge to our animation. And of course, I'm talking about sparks. Oh yeah. So we are going to create a particle system. PF source as usual. Draw one in the viewport like that. Now, as we've learned our lessons before, we are going to need to align it to the particle system which is already here, which is, so we're going to align it to the writing particle system T, and then hit pick. Then we're going to align them on the X, Y, and Z position, you know, and also we also align the orientations. So you can see, of course, what it gives us. And this guy really needs to be scaled down, so we are scaling down the logo, and the rectangle size, and the width as well, of course. Yeah. Remember, we're working from 0 frames, which is the very beginning of our animation, and then we're going to link it to the laser beam T. That way, of course, you can see now what is going on. You can see, of course, what is going on now. Okay. And then let's open up its particle view. First, we need to rename it to something appropriate. So we're going to call it what it is. It's sparks T, because it's responsible for emitting sparks in our scene. And then we're going to open the particle view. Of course, you can see here what is going on. Remember, when you scrap through the animation, that is what is happening. First things first, the flow of particles is incorrect because the particles are going inside. So we are going to come here, as you can see. Actually, to make life easier for ourselves, let's move this particle system here so they can come down a bit. So it can be easy for us to read. Okay. First of all, the birth, of course, controls when should the particles begin to emit. Well, we don't want them to be emitting from the very beginning, so we're going to tell it to emit from the 5th frame until, let's see, until the time when most of our text here has been properly outlined, which is around frame 50. Okay. And then, how many particles we want? I think, let's go for, because this is sparks, we need a lot of them, so let's go for 1,200, like that. Okay. And then we have the position icon, of course, which tells it where should it be emitted from. And I think, let's check inherit emitter movement. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, inherit emitter movement. And now the speed. Now, this really is very important because it determines just how quickly the sparks will be flowing. So I think we're going to change the speed to something like 250. Okay? And then we don't want all the sparks to fall at the same rate because there needs to be a bit of a variety to add to some dynamism to our scene. So we're going to change the variation to 50. Okay, so that it's, you know, not all particles flow at the same speed. Now, very important, remember the problem we're having now is that the sparks keep falling inside. We need to make them come out. So, as I showed you the trick already, we are going to simply need to tick this option here, reverse. By doing that, of course, now you can see, of course, now the particles are coming like that out. And then also, the direction in which the particles are flowing, we don't want them to be flowing right into our face. It should be falling sideways. So, select the sparks T particle system. Let's go to the beginning of the animation or somewhere here. We're going to select the rotation tool. We're going to rotate it on the local axis, and of course make sure you turn on the angle step toggle. And then let's rotate this baby here 90 degrees like that. So that of course now it's falling sideways. Okay. Like that, okay? And then also let's go to the rotation. The rotation should be dependent on the flow of the particle, so we're going to change it to speed space follow, like that. Okay, so that's what we have so far to act as sparks. And now we need to tell 3D Max what objects will actually come out of this. It shouldn't be this little star object, it should be some proper shapes. So we're going to drag, we're going to drag a shape facing operator on top of the original shape that was there already, so that of course it can give us what we want. Let's go ahead and change the display here to geometry. Yeah. So you can see already what it wants to be. So we go to the shape facing operator. We need to change what objects of course should be coming out of here. As you can see at the moment it's simple planes, and our sparks of course need to have more or less the shapes of sparks. And that's something we are going to control under here in world space size. Let's give them, let's see, 3.6 units. So that of course the particles are now bigger and longer. But of course, as you can see, they need to be squashed down. So we scroll down to the width over height ratio. In here we're going to enter 25. Aha! You see what happens when we enter 25? Of course, the particles become thinner. And as you can see, when you play around with the settings, you can see, of course, the values keep changing, of course. And again, we want some dynamism so that not all the particles look the same. So for the variation, we're going to enter the 50. Yeah. So that there's some randomness about the way they look. Of course, as you can see, we need to fix the motion of our particle. Now, the sparks should be falling towards the ground, downwards. So we need to create a force that will be responsible for dragging them, of course, downwards. So let's go to the create panel and then jump on to space warps. As you can see there we have forces, and we're going to add a gravity. As you can see, of course, our gravity is going down. Select the rotation tool. As you can see, we are rotating on the local axis, and that's how we want to rotate it. So that, of course, the particles will flow at an angle. Okay. Let's open again our particle system, and we're going to add our force in here. And we're going to add, of course, gravity. And do you see that immediately when we add the force, you can see now, now the particles are falling at a particular angle, and by manipulating the direction of the particles of the gravity, you can see, of course, the particles decide to take different directions. Now, not all the particles should simply be able to fall like that. Okay, we want some dynamism. So to create some dynamism, we are going to add a wind modifier, or a wind object, a wind space warp. And again, also rotate it downwards, and I think we're going to rotate it sideways. Open again our particle system. Under the force here, we are going to add a wind like that. And now we need to adjust each of these values, each of these forces separately. So for the gravity, let's come to its modify panel. I think it shouldn't be too strong, the force, so we're going to change the strength to 0.145, so that it can give them more room to breathe. The force should really not be too strong. And the decay also, it causes the particles to behave more dynamically, so we're going to change the value to 0.405, like that. Okay, just to create, more dynamism. Now, they are still falling straight down. Some dynamism is really required. So we're going to select the strength of our wind, change the strength to something like 5.4. You can see now, by doing that, of course, the wind becomes much stronger. And again, for some dynamism, we're going to change the decays to 0.03. You can see, of course, the impact that each of these settings is having in our scene. Let's just select our sparks particle system again. Under Q quantity multiplier, we want to make sure that we can see every particle in the viewport, so we're going to change the multiplier to 100%. we are going to come here, change its color to yellow, so that we know we are dealing with sparks here. Okay, yeah, that's much better. So we're still working on the wind. Now, we want these particles to be spread further apart, and that can only be caused by the wind turbulence. Just like in real life, if you hear that there is a turbulent weather outside, you know that the wind is really misbehaving and throwing trees around, you know, and even throwing children around, depending on how light the child is. And of course, in extreme cases, it can even throw an aeroplane out of its way, you know. So we're going to change the wind turbulence to a good value, something like 0.186. Okay. When we scrub this through, there is some spreading apart, but we want more. So with the wind still on, we're going to increase the turbulence to something higher. Aha, can you see that? What did I tell you? Disturbing the turbulence really causes turbulence. You look at that, eh? You see? So you can simply increase your turbulence settings, as you can see, to a higher value, something like 2.8. That way, the particles, of course, you see that? They flow nicely further apart, you see? Nice. Okay. Look at that, eh? Brilliant. And then we are also going to add a material to our spark, so we're going to drag a material dynamic to it. And then we should open up the material editor. Select an empty slot here, call it sparks. And then, of course, change its color to yellow so that we know what we're dealing with. And then we're going to drag this material here to this empty slot here, make it an instance. So that, of course, now you can see the sparks have taken the material that has been given to them. Now, the spark shouldn't just fall on forever, because that would just be so wrong, you know. We want them to kind of bounce off the floor upon which they'll be falling. So, we're going to create a floor. So we select a plane, standard objects, we're going to create a plane. And yeah, let's draw a plane out in the viewport. You can just reduce its settings, as you can see. Let's change this color to something dull, because you're not really going to pay much attention to it. Something like that. Yeah, that's good. And just confirm that it's sitting nicely on the floor. Yes, it is. And it's sitting nicely on the floor there. Now, this is the plane that's going to be responsible for controlling the flow of the sparks so that it can keep them in position. But it can't do it on its own unless it has a force to push the particles. So, just like in real life, when someone is welding with the welding tool, you will notice that the sparks don't just disappear. You know, they're still kept on the ground before they actually go off. So we are going to go to the space warps, and we need to add what we call a deflector. And then we're going to add a U deflector to it. So create one in the viewport, as you can see. Now, what is a U deflector? Well, as you can see by judging on its shape, it can clearly show you that it's responsible for causing the particles to come from one direction, hit on the floor, and then bounce back up again. Can you see that? You can judge by the shape of its arrows that the particle will come, it hits the floor, and then jumps up. Now, the U deflector needs to know which object should it use as a deflection surface. So we go to the modify panel, and of course we pick the plane. The floor, that is this object here. Let's rename it to floor. Okay. Now we need to open up the particle system. Now we need to tell 3D Max that the collision needs to happen between the sparks and the ground or the floor. So guess what? We are going to come and drop or bring a collision spawn operator just above the force, like that. And of course, it's going to be responsible for causing the bounciness. So we are going to, it needs to an object to use as the deflector, so we are going to add our deflector. Now, when the particles come, can you see what is going on? They come, they hit the floor there, and then guess what? Aha, can you see? They're bouncing back up again. If you were to view things from here, look at this. You see that? Aha. The particles are coming, they're bouncing off the surface, and of course are jumping back up again. Now we need to tell them what to do, of course. As you can see, 3D Max tells them to delete the parents. And we want some variation, so maybe we're going to tell it what, 20% variation, so that not all of them do the same things. Again, remember, we're always trying to create dynamism with our animations. We're going to scroll down. And here, under the speed, we're also going to change the speed to something like 30%. Okay, so that not all the speeds are the same, and their sizes should also be varied, so something like 30% should do. And then select the U deflector itself. As you can see, it has its own parameters to be adjusted. Now, the bouncing controls, of course, just how much the particles actually bounce when they hit the surface. I think we're going to set ours to 0.3. Okay, so that not all of them actually bounce very hard. You see that? That's very nice now. And then there also needs to be some friction between the particles, the sparks, and the floor. So we're going to increase the friction. Aha, you see? Friction causes the particles to stay closer together when they bounce. See? When they bounce, you see now? Aha, they fall, of course, closer to each other, like that, okay? How nice, eh? If we were to preview this, aha, you can see the particles actually look so tiny. Okay?